In the quiet suburbs of Illinois, a predator stalked the streets, leaving a trail of terror and tragedy in his wake. His horrific crimes hidden in the shadows. His victims were young and unsuspecting, their lives violently cut short by a man who appeared unremarkable but harbored a sinister darkness. For nearly a decade, Bruce Lindahl evaded justice. Law enforcement chased shadows, unable to piece together the puzzle of his crimes. But in a chilling twist of fate, Lindahl's reign of terror ended in a way no one could have anticipated, by his own hand. His legacy is one of horror, yet his death revealed a cascade of secrets that finally began to bring answers to grieving families.
The serial killer, like Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy and David Parker Ray and those people, almost all of them, more than 90%, meet criteria, hard criteria for psychopathy.
It was a cold and quiet January evening in 1976, when 16-year-old Pamela Morer left her friend's house in Lindahl, Illinois, for a quick trip to the nearby McDonald's. The streets were dark, and Pamela, known for her kindness and bright smile, had no reason to suspect the danger that lurked nearby. When she failed to return home, her parents' worst fears were realized. The next morning, a passerby spotted her purse discarded near the roadside, leading to a devastating discovery. Pamela's lifeless body. She'd been strangled and sexually assaulted, her life stolen by a faceless monster. For decades, her murder haunted the community, a chilling cold case that left her family searching for answers. Little did they know, advanced DNA technology would one day uncover the horrifying truth about her killer.
Almost all of them are sadists, meaning that they meet criteria for sadistic personality as it had been described. Enjoyment of the suffering of others is a key quality. Love of control and domination of others.
Three years after Pamela's murder, Lindahl struck again. On a seemingly ordinary day in March, 20-year-old Annette Lazar found herself lured into a trap.
Buried it in the back of the archives of my brain because I can't, some things are so painful in our life.
Lazar was one of Bruce Lindahl's victims. Lazar was just 20 years old, on her way to a friend's house when she met Lindahl in 1979.
This guy looked like a normal guy, pulls up. I was like, no, and that's when he put a 9 to my head and grabbed me by my throat. And he bruised my throat. I had marks on my body from him. I decided to flatter him and compliment him and tell him I really liked him. He's my type.
Her clever manipulation convinced him to let her go, but her ordeal didn't end there. Despite reporting the attack to authorities, Lindahl avoided accountability.
I had bruises on my neck, and I even had a red mark where he put the gun to my temple. And they didn't believe me. I just was in shock. I thought they would believe me, And that's why I went to the police to prevent this from happening to anyone else.
Annette's courage in surviving the attack was remarkable, but the system failed to stop the predator before he could strike again. Later that same month, 18-year-old Kathy Heil disappeared without a trace on her way to pick up her sister. Kathy, a vibrant young woman with her whole life ahead of her, vanished into the night, leaving her family in agonizing uncertainty. Weeks turned into months, and then her body was discovered in the Fox River. A grim confirmation of the family's worst fears. For years, investigators struggled to identify her killer. The case grew colder with every passing year, but the advent of DNA technology provided a breakthrough. Decades later, forensic scientists linked evidence from Kathy's clothing to Bruce Lindahl, confirming what her family had long suspected, that Kathy was yet another victim of Lindahl's violent spree.
Half of them are loners, men that can't make long relationships with others. So, in effect, some of them use serial killing as a way of having a one-night stand where they rape and woman, then kill her to destroy evidence, dump her body by the side of the road or whatever, and then go on to the next, because they're incapable of a sustained, romantic, intimate relationship.
In November 1979, 16-year-old Deborah McCall's life was forever altered when she disappeared after leaving Downers Grove North High School. Her sudden disappearance shocked her family and friends. Posters of Deborah lined the streets, and searches ensued, but no trace of her was ever found. Years later, during a search of Lindahl's belongings, police discovered haunting photographs of Deborah. These images painted an unsettling picture of the final moments of her life, leaving no doubt about Lindahl's involvement. Although her remains were never recovered, the discovery of the photos provided heartbreaking closure to a family who had long searched for answers.
Well, I wouldn't have thought of him as a serial killer. It just wouldn't have crossed my mind. Now we know different.
I wasn't surprised. I'd had one close call with him. He had pulled wires on my car so that I couldn't start it. I remember him swearing and saying, that thing shouldn't have started. So
he admitted it.
Oh, he admitted it, yeah.
Mike now wonders what might have happened if Terry had gotten into Lindahl's car.
She could have been one of the victims.
Several years later, Terry's brother saw Lindahl trying to force a young girl into his car.
She was yelling for help. That's when my brother saw her and intercepted. He got her away from Bruce. Bruce came after my brother and pulled his coat over his head.
So your brother couldn't defend himself?
Right.
Her brother received 11 stitches.
He probably did prevent that girl's death.
Deborah Colliander's encounter with Bruce Lindahl began, like many others, with a seemingly innocent interaction that turned violent. On a summer day in 1980, Deborah was abducted from a parking lot and taken to Lindahl's apartment, where she endured a horrific assault. Her determination and bravery led her to escape and report her attacker to the authorities. Lindahl was arrested, and for a moment, justice seemed within reach. However, he posted bail and walked free, a decision that would prove fatal for Deborah. Months later, she disappeared, her voice silenced before she could testify against him. In 1982, her decomposed body was discovered, marking another tragic chapter in Lindahl's story of unchecked violence.
Police still baffled.
By the beginning of 1981, Bruce Lindahl's criminal behavior had reached new heights. In yet another disturbing incident, police stopped Lindahl as he transported an unconscious and bleeding woman in his car. When questioned, he claimed he was taking her to the hospital, but his erratic route and suspicious behavior told a different story. The woman later revealed she had been drugged and assaulted, her trust betrayed in the most horrifying way. Despite her account and the damning evidence, no charges were filed, leaving Lindahl free to continue his predatory behavior. April 4th, 1981 began as an ordinary evening for 18-year-old Charles Chuck Huber Jr., who had accepted an invitation to spend time with Bruce Lindahl. The two went bowling before returning to an apartment Lindahl shared with his ex-girlfriend. What followed was a night of unimaginable horror. Lindahl, without warning, launched a frenzied attack, stabbing Chuck 28 times in a calculated effort to take his life. But Chuck fought back with every ounce of strength he had, turning the tables on his attacker. In the struggle, Lindahl accidentally severed his own femoral artery, collapsing in a pool of his own blood. Chuck's life ended that night, but so did Lindahl's reign of terror. In a final, ironic twist, the man who had stolen so many lives met his end at his own hands. Bruce Lindahl's death brought an abrupt end to the nightmare that had plagued the Chicago suburbs for years. Yet, for his victims and their families, the pain and loss remain. DNA evidence uncovered after his death connected Lindahl to numerous unsolved cases, revealing the scope of his crimes and the lives he had destroyed. He was a predator who thrived in the shadows, his monstrous acts leaving scars on countless lives. Though his end was poetic in its justice, the legacy of his actions serves as a sobering reminder of the critical need for vigilance and accountability in the pursuit of justice.